I'm going to be responding to the culminating oral reflection for ENG4U. The first question is, reflect on the writing strategies and progress throughout the course and comment on what indicates strength and a developing maturity. The writing strategies that I use throughout this course is writing bullet points for each lesson. For example, if a lesson talked about how names are important in fifth business, then I would write a bullet point on how Paul was renamed to Magnus and how Dunstanable was renamed to Dunstan. Furthermore, I also kept a small journal as one of my writing strategies. While I was reading Fifth Business and 3-Day Road, I would write small summaries of the chapters and try to compare and contrast the characters and their environments from each novels. I also used the journal to keep my top 3 quotes from each novel, and this proved to be very helpful for my culminating project. Overall, I think the bullet points helped me to strengthen my understanding of the lessons, and the journal allowed me to maturely reflect upon the things that I learned. The second question is, identify your strengths and weaknesses as a writer, including what you will continue to work through as you move to post-secondary is insightful and well considered. So, one of my major weaknesses as a writer would be that I often get lost in my work and I can end up writing 5 long sentences to express a point that I could have wrote in 2 sentences. This causes me to repeat what I say in different ways and consumes my time as I have to go back and redo and edit some of the sentences. I also have a weakness with stylistic errors, especially with quoting in the MLA format. I plan to write drafts for my work as I move into post-secondary to help with my overwriting problem and also to review the MLA formats to overcome my stylistic error problems. One of my strengths, on the other hand, as a writer, would be that I feel I communicate well with my audience and that whatever I'm trying to say, my point will always get across. The third question is, comment on your essay's thesis and the resulting conclusions that you reached reflects depth and how you achieved a high degree of comfort with the subject and the 2 novels under consideration. So my essay's thesis is, in both novels, Fifth Business and 3-Day Road, the setting significantly influences the main character's development in all stages of their lives. I chose this because while reading 3-Day Road and Fifth Business, I realized that both characters go to war, and they're also from an oppressive home. Now, the fact that both characters went to war, that was very interesting for me, and I decided to use setting because war is a setting, so that's what I'm just decided to write my essay on. I also felt that because the war affects the characters in different ways, for example, for Dunstan, he becomes a hero, whereas Xavier, he gets destroyed by the war mentally and physically. So I felt that if I was able to write an essay on this, it would be able to express the pros and cons of going to war. So that's one of the reasons why I chose the setting and the thesis that I chose. And the conclusion that I reached is that both novels depict how settings have lifelong implications on a character's development. For example, Dunstan, he's from the town of Deptford, where it's kind of isolated and people don't really talk to him because of his connection with Mary Dempster, and this causes him to go to war. And then from war, he comes back as a hero, and the town accepts him. Whereas Xavier, he goes to a residential school where people don't like him, causing him to go to war. And then in war, the war destroys him physically and mentally. He loses his best friend, and he also loses his leg and develops a severe morphine addiction. So when he comes back to his home, he basically only comes back to die. So this shows the different sides of war. And that's why I have a high degree of comfort with the subject, because I really feel that I want to express the 2 sides of the war. Also, the two novels basically complement each other. That's what I think, because Dunstan is born in a town and Xavier is born in a traditional place. So whereas religion and faith is really important in Deptford, it's more of tradition and faith that's important for Xavier. And in Fifth Business, they really emphasize on religion and faith, and it's open, like everyone can do their religion or do their faith openly, whereas in 3-Day Road, Xavier got punished with lye soap in his mouth from the nuns if he so much as spoke in his own language. So the novels really do compare and contrast with each other by themselves. Overall, in conclusion, Xavier comes from a conservative small town and a residential school, and Dunstan comes from a conservative small town. This leads them both to feel isolated and ultimately reject their setting of the small town and residential school, causing them to go to war, where they both experience fear and confusion. However, they both respond to this differently. Dunstan comes back. He comes back to his home as a hero, and the trauma caused him to become a more confident adult, whereas Xavier's experience results leaving him on the brink of death. He loses his best friend and develops a morphine addiction, so the war overall just was not a good experience for Xavier. Following this experience, both individuals return home, where they try to come to terms with their past. Xavier returns to his aunt in the bush, and she tells him that he is going to die. However, Xavier feels peaceful to die back in the bush where he's from, and Dunstan returns home to further seek out his connection with Mary Dempster, and he's no longer afraid of what the town will think of him. So the war does affect both characters in different ways, and the war is a setting. So in conclusion, the settings have lifelong implication on the character's development. That is the conclusion of my essay.